It's great to be in a room with such a buzz so early in the morning as well. So thank you so much for taking the time to come to launch the cross-party Climate, Nature and Crisis Caucus.
That's Labour MP Olivia Blake at the launch of a new cross-party group to counter growing scepticism about climate change. MPs, peers, campaigners and scientists crammed into a room overlooking the River Thames for that breakfast time event. But what's the new group for and what will it do? I asked its chair Olivia Blake what gap it was trying to fill.
There are plenty of all-party parliamentary groups, there's lots of special interest groups, but there isn't actually a way for us to work collectively to really leverage our power here. It's about, making it clear that the consensus is still there, that we need to protect and rebuild it where it starts to fragment, and we need to make sure that we're pushing our government as hard as possible to do as much as it can, but also making sure that we're holding all political parties to account to make sure that we don't lose that consensus that has been so built up in the last previous decades.
But is it not too late? I mean, that consensus is clearly crumbling. You've got the Conservatives expressing their doubts about, some of the climate change acts. You've got Nigel Farage on Reform UK casting doubts on all sorts of ideas about climate change. The consensus is gone, isn't it?
I strongly disagree with that. I think there is some very loud voices which are taking up the space. That is exactly why we're setting this group up, to take back the megaphone and make sure that the science is being clearly presented to our constituents, and actually the opportunities of acting for our communities are made clear, and that we can actually support our government to do what it needs to do. I think that, there is a fight on our hands and we do have a lot of work to do, but that's exactly why coming together cross-party and making very clear that actually inaction is inexcusable is why we're here today.
The 2008 Climate Change Act puts targets for cutting emissions into law. It was introduced under the last Labour government and was strengthened by Conservative Prime Minister Theresa May. But in a recent speech, the Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch pledged to scrap the legislation and replace it with a strategy for cheap and reliable energy.
Net zero by 2050 is impossible. I don't say that with pleasure. I want a better future and a better environment for our children, but we have to get real. Anyone who has done any serious analysis knows it cannot be achieved without a significant drop in our living standards, or worse, by bankrupting us. Responsible leaders don't indulge in fictions which are going to make families poorer.
I asked the Conservative former Environment Secretary John Gummer, now Lord Deben, what he made of Kemi Badenoch's approach.
It may well be that Mrs. Badenoch would like to change some of the aims. She might disagree with some of the arguments. But the fact is, the Act itself is absolutely crucial for us to achieve what we need to do. And she'd only have to look across the seas to the worst storm that we've ever had. She's only got to think about the second worst harvest that we've ever had in Britain. Think about the drought and the flooding to understand that we have to act. We have to act now. And the Climate Change Act is actually the thing that everyone in the world is copying in one way and another. And at the same time, China is weaponizing climate change and doing more than anyone else. So that's the real world, and that's the world we have to live in.
Professor Dame E.J. Milner-Gulland, Professor of Biodiversity at the University of Oxford, is one of the scientists involved in the project, trying to bring scientific fact to the climate change debate. Why did she think the political consensus was crumbling?
The general public can see climate change, the general public love nature, but there are strong political headwinds around the world that are meaning that people aren't perhaps speaking out as clearly as they might have once done. And we need to have that understanding across all the different political divides and try to bring us together in something that is a non-party political issue. It's an issue about the survival, prosperity, health of our nation.
The Liberal Democrat's Pippa Heylings speaks for the party on energy security and net zero. She reckons we're at a key moment.
We're actually at the tipping point, not only because we're seeing climate tipping point, we're also at a tipping point in terms of transformation of the way we generate our energy and we power our economies. And there are vested interests that are very, very worried about that. And so we are feeling now the pushback as we're going into those who would like to argue that it is economically viable to still keep going into fossil fuel reserves that in the past would not have been seen as economically viable. We are making the case that the best for our economic future, for jobs and livelihoods in the future, is a green industrial revolution.
Lib Dem Pippa Heylings.